answer it a couple of ways. First of all, I would say life for us, or for me, was very busy, hectic coming into lockdown, and it just seemed like one thing after another. And when you hear me talk about that, I would say that through even that going in, coming up to lockdown, my faith was fairly consistent. Always has been, always will be. That's the one thing that has grounded me. It's kept me going. Has been my faith in God, faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. So in one sense, you're going to hear me talk about that there was a sense that it was hectic. It was 100 miles an hour. And those are scheduling things. Those are like, spinning this plate, spinning that plate. But if it was one thing that I was working on coming up to lockdown, it was the idea of rhythm. And I've spoke this to one or two guys, that have, asked or anything like that there. And I was beginning to work on my like internal clock. So rhythm is so important. So while things were busy, at the same time, there was like this internal clock or internal rhythm that was just going, boom, boom. So I was working on trying to maintain that. So there was times whenever it was busy, and an odd time, I have no shame in saying that, if there was a moment or two or a day or two whenever it was a little bit easy, I took it easy, and I'll take that when I get it. And it's odd because for me, there was a song, and I know that you like the song, both of us, we will listen to it, so it would, because it sort of summed up where I was coming into lockdown. And it's a song by Gateway, and it's simply called I Will Wait. In actual fact, there's a guy who used to be in All Sons and Daughters, David Leonard, has taken it, he's done it, his own version of it, released it there a couple of months ago, and it's fantastic. So it is. And the words of it simply just say this here: I am reminded from where you have brought me and where you have placed me for the day. And I won't forget that your hand will hold me. Your love sustains me through the wind. I will wait on you, Lord. Oh, the burdens that I've carried, they are heavy. They are too heavy to hold. But there's a river and there's a sunrise. There's a new day bringing new life. And I think that song really came at the right time in a sense, because it helped focus on where I have been and all the journey that has brought me to where I am. And where I am, I'm thankful for where I am now. And I suppose before lockdown, if it was to sum up my faith and my journey there, I would say it would be that I was waiting on the Lord. I was waiting on hearing from him. I was waiting on his direction. I was waiting on his guidance. I was waiting to, let him do what he needed to do. And so, that's where I was before. My faith, pretty consistent. Things were very busy. And then lockdown happened.
And how do you feel the pandemic has impacted your life, firstly on a personal level, and then in terms of leading the church and trying to bring a church into a pandemic? It's nothing that's ever been done before. So it's new to everybody, but how did it affect you?
Personally, from the moment that lockdown happened, I would say that, if you were to draw a graph going across, of like your emotions of, and I would say it'd be up and down, up and down, up and down. I would say that's just the way I've been through lockdown. I think, I've really, I suppose in one sense, I've, had to try and get a grip of my emotional side. I would always say to folk, spiritually speaking, I'm a child of the King. I am. That's rock solid. That's not going to change. I am his. He is mine, and always will be. And praise God for it. Thank God for it, and for the salvation that I have, that I am his. So spiritually speaking, solid. Physically, you hear me, speaking there about maybe going for a run today. I can go for a run. I can keep fit, so physically speaking, I'm spot on. I'm hunky-dory. Still run rings around Lee on the football pitch if it came to it, mate. All right. So just wanted to point that out. But, so physically fine, but emotionally. And this is a side that as a bloke, for me, I've spoke to other people and where they are, emotionally. I've ministered into people, where at times maybe their emotions have got the better of them at times, and they've been feeling a little jaded with a number of things. So for me going through this here, I've really had to come to terms with my emotional side. And at the minute, I'm sort of reading a couple of books in and around, how to manage my emotions. One is by Dr. Charles Stanley, and that is Becoming Emotionally Whole. So that's a fantastic book. scriptural. If that's where you are, then go ahead and read it. And then the other book is by Dr. Henry Nouwen. I first came in contact with his ministry when I went to Gateway the first time. So he has a book called Boundaries for Leaders. So it's all about, putting boundaries in a sense, in a healthy way, when to say yes, when to say no, and let your no mean no, and let your yes mean yes. And so that's been very helpful too as well. But I think all that plays into the fact that I've had a lack of contact with people. Mm-hmm. I think in my role, my ministry, so much of my time is spent around people, with people, bouncing off people, touching base with people, making sure they're okay. And whenever I didn't have that, I sort of felt like a spare part. And so I, more and more through this, personally speaking, before I get on to the church dance, the second half, more and more, I've come to appreciate who is important in my life, and who's there for you whenever the chips are down. Really, in all honesty, that's meant everything. Secondly, in terms of church, I mean, like, where do you begin? Everything flipped on its head. Every way that I knew about doing ministry changed overnight. I hadn't a clue what I was going to do at the start of it. Whenever, we got an email from headquarters saying, that's it, no church services,
If you want to see Darren panic, then you should have been in our house whenever that email came through. He's like, what's going to happen? What are we going to do?
I hadn't a clue what was going to, because as a pastor, as a leader, I like to lead with, and if I can see 5 years down the line, if I can see, a year down the line, I'll keep going. If I feel that there's still more to give, I'm going to keep giving it. But whenever that happened in March, I didn't know, I couldn't even see the next week. I couldn't tell you what we were going to do in terms of, church and everything, and how it was all going to come together. And that, for a person who likes to sound or appear confident, all right, but quite a lot of the time isn't confident, somebody who likes to try and do a good job and make, a best a job as possible. I kind of felt very vulnerable in terms of that as the pastor. How was I going to get a church online that, if I looked at it, me looking at it, other guys might look at it very, very differently. I'm like looking at it going, we're 3 to 5 years away from ever, introducing some form of online service or some sort of, if I'm scaling things out, in terms of vision and different things, it just wasn't on the radar, for a bit, came into my thought maybe once or twice, but nowhere near, were we anywhere near getting a church online. And so that was a massive, massive challenge. I'll say a little bit more about that, for the help that we had to make that possible, and leaning on other guys' talents that I just didn't have. I didn't have that capacity in me to do that. I'll sit in front of a camera, I'll talk, and you won't keep me quiet, but that's what I can do. But I can't do the other stuff. I've learned bits and pieces, but that's it. So how I was going to pastor a church, I didn't have, a playbook to refer to. I didn't have anything to go on. So I brought a feeling of feeling stressed, like stressed through the roof, like, and through, like not sleeping, we went through, just how are we going to, and you'll have seen me, appear on a camera on Sunday and think, oh, he looks really, but believe me, you see behind the scenes through all of that.
I didn't think you looked really well.
Okay. And then toward the end of it, whereas the levels of creativity was, it just sucked you, you just,
it was amazing how everybody chipped in.
Trying to stay positive at that point was hard. So I think what Corona has done, what the coronavirus or whatever has done, it's thrown a huge spanner in the works. So it has, and it's like there's a big magic reset button, that happened in the church, and it just, it got pressed. Whether we wanted it to be pressed, whether or whatever, we thought like our reset button got pressed, so it did. And when I thought about, coming back into the building, coming back into ministry, coming back into church, for me, there was things then that I had thought, well, if I'm coming back, then I want things done a certain way. If I'm coming back, then there's things that I would like to see done, and there's things maybe before, as a leader or whatever, I never, I let slide, you know, or I didn't deal with, or, you know, sometimes, and you learn from that. You learn the hard way. So you do, in a sense, you really do. You learn the hard way. And so when you've got time at home and you're thinking about where you want to take the church and you want to see God bless and you want to see God grow, there's just some things that you think when you come back, I'm actually not really sort of putting up with that, you know. And I get that congregations can think exactly, guys, you could think exactly the same. You know, there's things that whenever you think about coming back, you want to see done. There's things that you want to see changed to as well. And so, yeah, I would say that, so that in terms of church, you know, but what's got me through it has been, you know, an emphasis of just sitting in the presence of Jesus.
But do you remember that, to start off with, in the first few weeks, whenever the online stuff was all a novelty, and yes, we were really missing being there in person, but I guess as it dragged on a wee bit more, the novelty sort of wore off a bit. But to start off with, whenever you were seeing it, and not just our church, I mean, so many different churches, Elim churches, other types of churches, and you were seeing their online efforts.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the excitement of like those first couple of weeks whenever church literally broke the internet. And it was like, do you know what, this virus isn't going to stop the people of God, and actually it's going to help us to reach other people. And even today, on my Facebook feed, there's a girl who is a backslider and still, I believe, knows that God wants her in a certain place and wants a relationship with her. And she posted a wee photo today of her newsfeed on Facebook, and it was of all these different church, you know, the notification that the church services were starting, and the comment she put on with it was, I think God actually wants me in church. And I thought, you know what, the impact of what the efforts that people have made in terms of church leadership and congregation members to feed into that and to sow into that,
Mm-hmm.
we'll never know the full outcome of that.
You know, to say that it, you know, in one sense, you know, we're seeing, you know, people watching, tuning in. It's making a big difference. So it is. It really is. It's not, you know, it's good whenever even people from our own church tune in. I love that. I love seeing that. What got me through was you know, being able to sit at the feet of Jesus. And I believe that, you know, no matter how well I perform, you know, or how well other people think I perform, it was his presence that uplifted me. And I would say that, you know, we now more than ever, coming in out of lockdown, going back into lockdown, the importance of the gospel, you know.
I'll tell a wee funny story just before I ask the last question, but my mum has been tuning in online and she loves it because she'll always comment and say good morning, and she says people always comment back.
Yes.
But there was
we need somebody to moderate Facebook now,
and kick her out. There was one of the weeks that, for those who don't know, my mum isn't a Christian, so I've loved that she's tuned in and she's listening. And there was one of the weeks she said to me, she phoned me after, and she was like, I told a couple of you this, she phoned me after it and she was like, that was a different speaker in this morning. And I said, what? She says, well, first of all, she said, it was the week that we got the painting done in the church. And she said, the painting looks really well. The place looks really well spruced up. And I enjoyed the visiting speaker. And I said, well, there was no visiting speaker. She tuned into a different church and had watched the whole service. And it was only afterwards, whenever I said to her, I was like, that wasn't our church. She says, I wondered, and this isn't just say at any other church, she says, I wondered because I commented and said good morning and nobody replied to me. So there you go. So she loves all of you. She thinks you're all dead friendly.
Do you know, see, whenever we were recording behind the scenes and then we had to upload it to Google, or, you know, the church Google Drive, you know, so that Tim could edit it and put it on for us all. Like, see the arguments that we had before I preached, you know, that I need to do this again. The kids have been noisy, or the neighbor started cutting his grass in the middle of one of my sermons. So he did. And I wanted to be a good witness to this guy. Like, you know, I want to see him saved. You know, but
and there was one of the weeks whenever we were doing communion that I didn't dilute the juice because I thought Darren had already diluted it. So we're sitting there and it was all nice and holy, and then obviously we had to take the swing of the and it was horrible. But at that stage, I was so focused on don't ruin this shot, but we'll have to do this again. It was like, keep a straight face.
So I have a little, you know, communion box. It's whenever I go around the older people in the church. So I can, before COVID, I don't do it now, I haven't done it for a while, and I would keep it, like, you know, that Italian breadsticks, you know, the breadsticks, break it up, you know, and I go around and I keep this little undiluted bottle of, you know, and Nicola.
Why would you keep it undiluted? But wouldn't the sensible thing be to dilute it whenever it's sitting there? So it was undiluted. But anyway, so God has been faithful through it all. And that's one thing, like, whenever, I'm sure like all of you in our house, there's been times when there's been ups and there's been downs, and times when you worry about things and times whenever you think, you know, God's got this. But he's been faithful through it all. And there always seem to be reminders just sent at the right time, that we shouldn't worry and that we should trust in him for what was going to lie ahead. So I think that in turn that makes us be more thankful whenever we actually think of what God has done for us. So are there 3 things that you're thankful for?
I have to think really hard, you know, about what I'm actually thankful for here, right? No, I know I'm actually I actually am thankful for you and the kids, because, you know, really in all honesty, you see me at my worst. You do, you know, and that worst is worse. That's bad. That's worse, you know, and you put up with me. But we've had a right laugh through it too as well. Like we genuinely did. See, whenever it's just us 3, you know, us 4.
But
Leave Reubenite.
But the first week he did say, like, Nicola, I'm struggling with you being here more.
Yes.
This is where we live. Where do you want us to go?
I am so used to having just this room here, you know, and I can go up and make as much coffee as I want, you know, prepare my messages, you know, and then I'm running around, you know, with the kids, you know, everything, and it was all up the left. It was actually harder to work, so it was. But anyway, we made it, you know. I'm actually, you know, there's so many, you know, the amount of TV shows that we watch, like.
Yep.
And
the amount of food shopping that anybody else's food shopping increased by like 3 or 4 times.
The Mandalorian. That's the best. I don't know if you haven't watched The Mandalorian. It's the best TV show on that ever.
So he's thankful for us and he's thankful for Netflix. Come on, 3 things.
Yeah. So no, and thankful for the time that we got to spend.
Yeah.
So in terms of family, the walks that we went on, and then whenever things sort of began to relax a wee bit, you know, getting out, you know, with others and some of the things that we did, you know, we'll never get that time back again. Like we made the most of it, you know, given the circumstances that we were in, and it was brilliant. So it was. And we said, Nicola and I say this here, you know, what we went through when all you guys are exactly the same. This lockdown probably will never ever happen again, and what we do now will be remembered. So in a sense, it's like history, you know, in the history of Lisburn Elim. So it is, you know, that what we did now, the people that stepped up to the plate and everything, you know, all through it, you know, you won't get another crack at being able to do it. And I think whenever we look back at it, you know, now saying that, I think we did really well, you know, too. But secondly, friends, you know, I'm thankful that I've got good friends around me who also call me out on things, you know, as well, which is what you need. You know, Scripture tells you, you know, faithful are the wounds of a brother, you know, and you know, like sometimes that happens. It's hard to take, like it's hard to swallow, but you know, but I've got good friends. So I'm thankful for them, and they're not there by any mistake or anything. You know, they're there because God placed them there. And like they keep trying to shake me, you know, walking away from me and all, and you know, not replying to my text, but I still keep going to them. So I'm thankful that I've got good friends that I can bounce off as well. And I'm thankful for Lisburn Elim. I really am. I am thankful for you guys. You'll never realize how much I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for those that, you know, when it came to into church life and a hard time, guys stepped up. They really did, and that will forever be remembered. So it will, and helped immensely. Who serve from a pure heart with no agenda, not looking at anything. They're not looking at anything in return or anything like that. They just serve. That's what I love. I love people just serving. Sometimes, you know, you get your cynical head on, so you do, and you wonder, or what are they looking in return from it? But listen, I just appreciate the guys that, you know, really see behind the scenes, see Tim editing, see Paul coordinating the worship, see Mark and Judith from the Sunday school and all the things and all the creativity, the ideas, and you know, all the different people, you know, that came forward with all the creativity and everything. You know, it was good to watch. So it was. I'm thankful for them. People who serve with the right attitude.
I love the Our Church piece that Alison wrote, and then watching everybody who took part in that, and it made me feel proud in the right sense. You know, it was get us back.
Some of them are wind-up merchants, like really, you know, in all honesty, like, you know, it's, you know, no, we really should throw that back up again, like, you know, because it is good. But people who serve with the right attitude, I'm thankful for that, because attitude is everything. not serving, not serving from a point of view because they agree with everything that you do. That's not what you want either. It's not healthy. But every now and then, it's just, I love to see someone to serve just because this is what they do for the church. It's not, they're not doing it for me. They're not doing it for because I'm the pastor of the church. Please don't ever, they don't have to agree with me on everything to serve in the church. Just serve the church. So I'm thankful for you guys. I'll make mistakes, believe me. I will disappoint you guys in church. And that will happen. It has happened, so it has. So I'm thankful that you bear with me, that you put up with me, and hopefully, in the future, all I can say is hopefully in the future you'll see me grow more and more in that role too as well. So,
any changes going forward?
What can I say? You're speaking to a guy who would change the living room every week. There would be a different position that the sofa would be sitting in if possible.
And I'm the type of person who likes everything just to stay exactly the way it was forever.
Yeah.
Never
so
change.
Everybody's different, and most of the time, people don't like change because changed environment, changes. But I think, to be honest with you, we're living in it right now. We're living in a massive change. And, how we deal with it, how we cope with that, says a lot about who we are as well. So yes, will there be changes? Absolutely, there'll be changes. So there will. But more importantly, what I'm focusing on more on what God has for me to do. So if I want to focus on that, I want to put time into that. So I do, and focus more on being positive.
Amen.
Yeah, focus more on being positive rather than being a big moan.
Amen.
Sometimes, you look back, you're like a big Jenny Ann at times, just narking about things in general. And I think
Katie said one of the days he was having a bad day, and he was moaning like he was, and Katie says, "Dad, you've got really old and moany."
Oh dear.
And I know the kids probably shouldn't speak to their elders like that, but it was really hard to correct her because she was kind of she was on the moly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So I think just going forward, focusing on what God has for me, and focus on being that, just in general, let's just be more positive. Let's speak positivity into the life of the church too as well. Let's give people the benefit of the doubt. That's what I said today. In church I talked about greeting everyone with a holy kiss. Now, we're not doing that under COVID circumstances, no way. But I think what Paul was getting at was just show affection to each other. And I think if we can do that, if we can be that and be the church that's just more affectionate and in love with the Lord and for each other and yeah. Absolutely.
We're not doing holy kisses in any situation, never mind just COVID situation, because otherwise we'll end up in the Sunday world. We don't want that publicity for the church.
Yeah. So yeah, is that it?
That's it. That's all I wanted to ask.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So guys, I sat in Starbucks the other day and I sat doing a little journal entry, so I did. And I write a journal entry and then I'll do this for 2 minutes and then that's all. So thank you for coming. And I write it, dear Lord. I start, dear Lord, and then I start with some things that I'm thankful for and some things that I wanted to work on. And really what the Lord was showing me was, remember the time whenever John the Baptist, he looked at Jesus and he said, he must increase and I must decrease. And I started to jot down some things about me that need to decrease. You're not going to see them, so you're not. And I started to jot down some of the things that I wanted to see the Lord increase in terms of not increasing in me, but Him increasing. And I believe that part of that there flows from a place of just allowing myself to be more vulnerable with people, not always having to, put on a face or anything like that. Just allowing myself to be vulnerable with people and be authentic with everybody and who I talk to and how I talk to in terms of ministry, how I do ministry, that everything's done in such a way that, that it's unto Him first and foremost, and that it flows out into other people too as well. And, when I looked at it and when I thought about it, I talked about some regrets I've got, some things, some mistakes I've made as well, and just learning from that. And so what I just wanted to say was, John the Baptist was coming toward the end of his ministry, so he was, whenever he said, he must increase and I must decrease. And I think, as we go forward, as a church, in terms of our ministry and the way we serve the Lord and the way we love the Lord, it must always, always be about him increasing, that there would be an increase of his presence, that there would be an increase of his love, that there would be an increase of his spirit upon us, that all of these things must increase. There's a lot of things that come with ministry and a lot of things that come into the play and into the mix, and a lot of it is good, so it is, but sometimes a lot of it's messy, and it can get, you can get bogged down in a lot of things, but we want to see him increase. And for him to increase, there's part of us also has to decrease. So there's things in me that need to decrease, that if I want to see God use me more, that if I want to, in a sense, when I'm praying, Lord, would you anoint me more? Would you give me more of your presence? Would you fill me with more of your spirit? Then what I need to do is I need to decrease. I need to empty myself out of all of those things, that I can't be consumed with self, that I can't be filled with self, but I must be filled with more of him. And so that's my prayer going forward, is that you and I, that as a church, that we would see him increase. All right. There you go. So guys, bless you. I don't know how to unmute you all. I have all of a sudden, since the last time we used this here, I have forgotten how to use Zoom. So I have. So apologies if
Can you unmute it?
I can go around them individually and
we can do it ourselves.
Unmute. There you go. Unmute. Say unmute. Maybe they were talking about me and we didn't know, but there you go. Unmute. So, yeah.
I talk about you, say how wonderful you are.
No.